for the Scorpio female. I split the masculine and feminine energies. I find there's a little more focus in what we're dealing with. So I'm just going to start out. I have a pyramid spread, and then I clarify with 3 tarot cards, and then I have 2 bonus cards. So I'm going to start out with the first card that I get for the Scorpio female is compassion. And I'm feeling a heavy lack of compassion here, a need for compassion. I think we need to come from our heart instead of our mind. And I think that is where we are leading from, is our mind. It has rewarded us in the past. So we do not feel the value in coming from compassion, but we need to come from there nonetheless. So I'm feeling a huge lack in these Scorpio females' lives to their heart. They're not listening to their heart. There's so many arguments that can be made for that. But for the most part, we need to dip into the heart center and deal with people with compassion and move that forward. The next card I get for you is equality. So we may not also be taking into account other people's feelings, other people's way of doing things, or giving them the freedom. I feel like there's a locked sense of who we are and what is right and what is wrong. And it's in a little box, and that's it. So a rigidity, in this equality. We're not opening up to all the universe has to offer in the way of dealing with others in an equal kind of way. I think we're not looking at ourselves properly here. And I've said this to people as I talk about the signs and the ascension process. I feel like the Scorpio females, the Scorpios period, are kind of on the back burner here. They're really getting pushed because they have to go. And so there's a lot of fighting. And up until now, I feel there's really not been any consequence for that, but we're going to be starting in the new year here. Me starting with the chaos is going to start coming forth if we don't hang on to the train and jump in. We're going to be huffing and puffing, and we're not going to make it. So we need to really hang on and make some progress. And like I said, it starts with compassion. Get in your heart center and realize what really matters to you in a heart-centered kind of way. And I think we've been in our head for so long, we just don't know where that sits. So we got to find that. And that'll help you right off the bat. That will help you clarify things. And the equality is really dealing with the other person. I feel like the Scorpios are not taking into account anyone outside of themselves. They're not even really taking into account their own emotions. So how can they do that outside of themselves? That's really what I'm getting. So the equality here to look at someone equally emotionally in a centered way is just not there. Which is interesting because Scorpio is the passionate sign, in the heart. But I think maybe in the past, right, we've been hurt so much that we just shut it down. And this is the lockdown that we've got it in. We got to unbolt that sucker and let her fly, because this is not going to serve you moving forward. It's just going to create more chaos, and you will just be out of the loop. And we don't want to do that. We want to bring you with us. So we need to move forward in that way, in a heart-centered way. So the next card I get is power. So there's a sense here of power and I'm feeling, again, going from your head. That's what is feeding this addiction to the head-centered thinking, is the fact that, what? I have never been wrong. I have got good results. Spiritually, we're void, but when it comes to logic and sound things and things that are solid and grounded in my life, logic has always been there for me. It's always done me good, and And that is kind of a fake facade, because even though you have these things, it's empty wins. It's empty victories, because you're really not feeling the depth that you need to feel in order to enjoy. I don't think the word enjoy really comes. I think you utilize and you dictate and you see and the results, but you do not feel. So there's a sense of power here that you have, but you're gaining it from a way that is outdated, that is obsolete. So we need to move forward here, and that's going to be the thing that's hard to bat off. It's going to be hard to bat off all those wins that you've gotten up to now that have fed your thought process and your superficiality on that sense, you got it covered with the thought process, but we need to go deeper here. And there's a real reluctance with these Scorpios. I feel male and female to really go underneath the veil here. So the next card I get after power is inspiration. So from the compassion, right? If we start dealing in compassion or we start dipping into that, we're going to find ways to inspire us to move forward in the right ways, in a more equal give and take between people. Because I feel like these Scorpio females specifically are really not gaining anything from anybody. I mean, they're gaining maybe material possessions or gaining, headway over, but it's like being at the top, right? But if you're at the top, it can be a lonely place if you had to step over all these heads to get there, because the ones that you stepped on, they're not going to be there for you. So I'm feeling like this is really that compassion. They need to dip. There's something that has to inspire them to use the compassion, and there's also the reward and the gifts that come with it, but they don't know what that is yet, right? Because they've been in their head for so long, they just don't know any other way. So how do you get that, right? How does that come? So I feel like not only will a dose of compassion give them inspiration, but they will be inspired in some way to go back to some source of compassion. So no matter what they do, if they refuse to look at it, there's going to be a jolt of inspiration that's going to lead them in the direction. And if they come up with it themselves, or you see the video and you go, okay, compassion, then they're going to be inspired in that way. Once they utilize that compassion outward, then they're going to be inspired in a direction. Now, contentment is the next card. So the inspiration from the compassion brings you the contentment. It's pretty simplistic. We just have to use our sense of compassion, and we will start to feel that deeper sense of contentment within ourselves. And we'll go, yeah, that's a lot deeper than what I was feeling in my head about things. So that's where we need to go. We need to dip into that. And the contentment is looking forward to the future, right? So we need to keep doing this to pursue that. And the inspiration, I'm feeling the universe is going to give you the inspiration. But if you are completely in your headspace, you really can bat it off quite easily. So you need to take into account these little things that soften you, soften the blow for others, that you have to take that into account. Where we end up at is individuation. So that's still working from that sense of who you are. Now, that is fine. And if that's what we need to do, we can outsource, that's fine. We just need to deal with ourselves with a sense of compassion, and then we can go outward with that after. We just need to start dealing with compassion. Now, on the one side, we have compassion, inspiration, and individualization. So there may be an awakening here of the compassion towards their own self. And if that happens, then that is good. That is the beginning. That's the seed, right? That's got to sprout. On the other side, we have power, contentment, and individualization. And I feel like the power is connected to an ego sense of who you are. And you need to get through that into your compassion in order to really deal with things, see things clearly and precisely, not warped. And I'm saying warped. I mean, like I said, there's a place for the head, but we need to really dip into the heart center. We are so off balance with these Scorpio females that we just need to go all compassion, which I don't know if that can happen. But if it's dipped into, you will be rewarded, and you will sense that on a deeper level. So that is the hope here, and that is the energies are coming at you. They're going to give you big realizations in that way, in a compassionate sense. So dip into that early and see what they can do, because they really will be rewarding these Scorpios, because they need you to move forward. And then a reluctance to go, then they just will be falling away, which means is they will not be advancing. So they will be, not moving forward in the process here, which would be sad. But nonetheless, this is a choice that was made, right? So the next part of the reading here, I have 3 tarot cards that it kind of can accentuate situation. And the first card I get of those is the Knight of Pentacles. So the Knight of Pentacles is about slow, methodical movement forward, you know, just tiptoeing and looking at every single thing around you and making sure that everything is right, correct, and just, right, before moving. I mean, the Knight of Pentacles is the slowest of the deck, and it's also the most organized, you know, he's gathering. So he's slow for a reason. He's slow because he's taking everything into account and everything's perfect. So this energy seems to be around you. And so that is good because that's paying attention to detail. We need that, right? So that's moving towards the Page of Pentacles. Now, the Page of Pentacles is news about work or career or anything that brings in money. Now, the Page of Pentacles is looking towards the King of Swords. So the King of Swords is that thought thinker. So we got to be careful. I think the Knight of Pentacles is really a symbol here of, you know, you're creeping forward into things. Instinctively, I think you're on alert. And because you are not tuned into that voice, you know, that thought process, or not wanting to listen to it, you're kind of going, okay, what's going to happen? Because you're getting tripped up at this point, and I feel like by spring, this is really going to be unavoidable for you. You really are going to have to take a step in the other direction in order to avoid complete chaos, because we're coming across so many mishaps here that we really have to pay attention to detail. And that's what I feel like you guys are doing. You're going, okay, what do I do now? Like, I got to watch, may not be watching in all the right areas, but nonetheless paying attention, right? And that's what we need. And then the Page of Pentacles is, again, everybody's looking forward to the future, but the Page of Pentacles is news about things that bring the money in. So be aware of that. There may be some trips there. Your foundation in that way, watch for that, because I have the King of Swords here at the end. So it could be two characters coming in, but I'm feeling it's more of a sense of the energy that they bring, which is going back to the Scorpio female. It's going back, and it's like, this is where I'm at right now. I'm just tiptoeing because everything I do turns to crap or turns to chaos, and you're noticing this. So now you're just tippy-toeing. And then the Page of Pentacles is watch for your foundations, things that bring in your money. You may have trip-ups in this area. And then the next card, the King of Swords, he's the master of clarity and clear thought. And that's really where you're coming from, and it's where you're headed. It's where you end up. So we're not making any progress here. We're tiptoeing, but we're not seeing what we need to see, okay? So the clarification cards, I got a surrender card and a fortune card. Now, the surrender card that you got is surrender your need to always be right. Give others the gift of letting them be right. Be yielding, not rigid. And this will help resolve conflicts and improve your relationship. So that's the universal signal here. Just let go of that and see what happens. And we're going to make some huge progress. And I too was getting a rigid sense of the boundaries here, like doop, doop, no, it's cut or dry, you know, and that's it. And so we need to kind of loosen up a little bit in that way. And I feel like some of this is maybe more in a work-centered area. We need to kind of let go and let people do their thing. And again, you don't always have to be right, and just let people go. You know, they may be wrong, but we don't have to advertise it. You know, they will eventually figure out they're wrong or whatever. If they're that wrong, you know, there's no need to waste energy in that area. And that's what I see as the Scorpios are kind of wasting energy in a lot of areas that it just does no good for them or the other person. They're not going to realize any more than they are, because they're kind of tuning people out anyway. So you're amongst that, right? So you got to understand that. So for the female, try to surrender your need to always be right. That's something you need to give up. Now, your fortune card for the Scorpio female is fire. It says, let go of emotional upheaval and embrace the renewal of the present. So again, I do feel like there's emotional upheaval in your life, or things that are cycling. They're loops, right, that are continuing. And the reason they're continuing is because we're not learning the lesson properly. We think, oh yeah, we got it because we won, right? We got what we thought that we wanted. but it's not actually, it's what the ego wanted. It's not what the soul wanted. So that's really, I think, the perception of what I'm getting here is that we're really coming from an ego-centered, selfish place. I hate to put it this way, blunt, but that's what I'm getting. And also we need to just, break off, right? The need to always be right. That in itself will really illuminate a lot of things for you. And I think from there, it'll just be a natural progression into more heart-centered areas. And embrace the renewal that's coming. Don't be afraid of it. I think we're starting to dip into the fear sector here because we've realized we're doing something wrong. We're just not knowing what it is or not seeing and not going back and dissecting it from the right level. We're dissecting it intellectually. We need to be dissecting it emotionally because there's a completely different wavelength there. When you dissect things emotionally, you really understand. You take other people's, compassion comes in. You take other people's opinions as yours, or not as yours, sorry. You take other people's opinions into account. And then you go, oh, yeah, I could understand, and you put yourself in other people's shoes and you manipulate that. At the end of the day, looking at that and thinking about the decisions that you made in a emotional way instead of a logical way, you will make headway. So that is hopefully some grounded advice you can take forward, because that's what you need to move forward, is really to get into that heart-centered place and really do not deny your feelings, bring them forward and move from that. That's what you want, then go forward with that. I think we're making logical decisions that really aren't doing anything for the soul. So hopefully that helps you Scorpio females over the winter season. And if you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and take care and have safe travels and be kind and have fun.